Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing a Hallmark Channel original series called The Way Home, Season 3, Episode 8. So before I get into my review, I just want to say thank you to everybody who watches and likes my videos, subscribes to my channel, leaves me comments. I read all my comments, so thank you to everybody who supports me. I really do appreciate you. So, getting into this episode, right? It's exciting because it looks like we're going to get some answers, but it also, as always, leaves us with more questions. So, at the end of my video, I'm kind of going to go over what we got solved or what questions were answered, what new questions arise, and what we kind of didn't see, because there's still some things we didn't really get to explore in this episode. But definitely exciting. We got to see all three of the eras, so I'm kind of going to talk about each era kind of and then go into those questions, because definitely a lot going on. All of these episodes are very packed. So I'm just happy we got a little bit more information and got some theories or some, oh, I assumed this was why, or, we get some answers. So in the flashback, it shows Colton, a teen Colton in 1814 with the potatoes and rye. So that's exciting. We see Dell talking at the pond. And you kind of see a splash as if she's watching someone jump. So, and then you also see Thomas and Kat. You also see Alice and Evie. So, they're setting you up. We're going to go back through to all of them. So it's definitely exciting. And the preview for next week is definitely exciting too. So I will go over that as well. But the first thing I'm going to do is talk about, 1814. Remember, we go to 1814 and 1816. So, the show starts out in 2025. With Jacob and Alice both running to Elliot's house, like, hey, we're looking for Kat. And, they tell Elliot, Casey and, Dad, as Jacob says, Casey and Colton both time travel. Nick hears it, and I love Nick. He's such a funny character. He's just kind of that, comic relief that you need in some of these serious, situations. And he's like, what, does everybody time travel except us? And then, of course, Elliot looks at him like, wait, what? You've time traveled, right? So I just love Nick, because I feel like he is lighthearted and he kind of lifts up in those moments. So that was kind of how they started the episode. So again, I like the episode, the scenes that Nick is in. I loved Nick in '99 with Alice. I thought they were so cute. Alice's first love relationship, so to speak, puppy love, whatever it was. I thought it was so cute. Now, obviously, it can never happen, right? Because he's an adult now. And so I don't think that's ever gonna rekindle, but I loved seeing them in '99 together. And honestly, I really like Nick as an adult. I like his character. I think he's good for everybody. You see here, he comforts Dell later in the episode. He talks with Elliot and Jacob. So it seems like Nick is kind of that friend that a lot of the Landrys kind of need right now. He's just that listening ear, because he knows about the pond, but he is not a time traveler. So he's kind of like the outside looking in, but he knows what's going on. And Elliot talks to him a little bit about it too. And I think, Nick is a good looking guy. I think he's easy on the eyes. So I definitely like Nick, even as an adult, in these scenes. How Claire is going to come into the mix, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But it's definitely exciting, at the beginning, they're both trying to find Kat just to tell them what they know. So going back to the exciting part, the 1800s, I think that's what most people like to see. I like to see all of it. I was very excited about the 70s. I still like the scenes in the 1800s because I really like Susanna. I love that character. So it's all exciting to me. But you go back to 1814. Because remember, we find out that Elijah with Susanna and Cyrus's wedding, Elijah's like, yeah, remember when we got that advice about the potatoes and rye? So, Kat should have sparked, that should have reminded her of something, but, I guess she was too focused on the wedding and trying to save Susanna. But my thought was, okay, who was it? Because we remember during the wedding scene, we all thought we saw Fern as one of the town people. So, yes, I thought Colton could have told him about potatoes and rye because we know Colton time travels, but we also know Fern is a Landry, and people seem to see her popping up in different episodes. Now, whether they're lookalikes or stand ins, but they do look like Fern. So I was never 100% sure it was Colton telling him about potatoes and rye. I know he time travels back. But I know he got the information from Fern, or maybe he knew his history. So that being said, we do get that confirmation. We see him coming out of the pond. Where am I, right? And it actually like starts right there. So I'm excited that it actually picks up where the preview left off. And Elijah is so nice and welcoming. Hi, I'm Elijah. This is my son. Let's get you in and warm. I always thought Jacob kind of staring at him almost like when he was coming in and Susanna was giving him like the tea and getting him warm and sitting at the table. And I don't know if maybe that was Jacob thinking of him when he was wet and little when Rebecca found him, because remember, this is the first time he's ever met a time traveler. This was 1814, before Kat ever traveled to 1814. So I mean, he traveled from 1974 but this was the first time Jacob had seen a time traveler. So the staring, I don't know if he was staring at him because they kind of looked alike, or I don't know, but I definitely picked up on that. And then they're in their field, and you see Susanna sketching. So the sketch was definitely of a teen Colton and Jacob. That was kind of my take when I saw the sketches in the last episode. I was like, that looks like teen Colton. And then we know he time travels, so we kind of got that answer that it was a teen Colton and Jacob. And Jacob basically telling him, like, when I get back, from delivering the ship, I'm going to marry Susanna. So, I mean, he flat out just tells Colton, So that's what we assumed, because I know we saw that in the past too. So, I mean, he just seems so happy, and Susanna seems quiet, but in that time, that was the way they were. The women were quiet. But I loved her sketching them then. And then Colton tells them, what his grandmother said when Jacob asked him he could stay over. Time I spend here is equal to the time I'm gone. So I wrote that down as a quote, because he said his grandmother, right, which would be Fern. And from my videos, I love Fern. Everything she says means something, right? Even the potatoes and rye. I'm sure people just were like, oh, she's an old lady. No, I actually wrote down potatoes and rye a couple episodes ago, because I'm like, it doesn't make sense now, but it's going to make sense soon. And it did. So I write down anything that kind of pertains to Fern, because I think she knows more. She knows who's traveling. She even said to Kat at one point when Kat was with Fern, it's nice to see somebody using the pond again. So, I mean, she knows people that have time traveled. Whether she's time traveled herself, we don't know. I mean, she is a Landry, so I'm assuming she could. However, even Landrys sometimes don't go anywhere when they jump. But that being said, I want more episodes with Fern. Show me more scenes. So that's why I wrote that down. The time I spend here is equal to the time I'm gone. And then you definitely get that answer that it was Colton, because as he leaves, he tells Jacob, to plant the potatoes and rye this harvest and next harvest. So you kind of get a couple answers. That's all you see of 1814. Then you see Kat in 1816, when, she comes back and she sees Thomas, and she's like, I thought we were going to say goodbye. They kiss again. And, I want to make sure the Landrys are safe and Susanna is secure. So I was just looking at my notes. That's what Thomas was telling her. Like, I didn't leave because I wanted to make sure Susanna was secure. So I understand they told us, kind of a backstory of that Thomas had business or dealings with Susanna's dad, and he's kind of looking after Susanna since her parents had passed. However, I just feel like, Thomas is very protective of Susanna, and I love that. I think it goes beyond just, your dad died and I want to make sure I write. I mean, he genuinely cares for Susanna and wants to make sure, of her well-being, Thomas has done with Jacob as well. But I just thought that was really sweet. Like, I want to make sure the Landrys were safe, and I wanted to make sure, Susanna was secure. And then, of course, I'm hoping to see you again, too. And then they kiss, and then Kat gets all cat like, I say, because she's all conflicted, and I don't dislike Kat. I love every character in this show, so I don't bash any character. I think some of them lash out when I don't like that in their character. But we have to remember, everybody makes mistakes, everybody lashes out, So when I say Kat was doing like a cat-like move, I was thinking where she's just kind of conflicted and I don't know what I'm gonna do, and kind of, impulsive. So she kisses Thomas, but then she's like, oh, I don't know, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I still need to think things through. And then, Thomas says, I won't wait for you forever. But and I understand she's conflicted, but she's kissed Thomas before. And it's almost like when she kisses Thomas, it's like she goes somewhere. You ever hear the expression, oh, when I'm with so and so, we're the only people in the world, right? So like when you're in love with somebody and you're going somewhere, I just remember saying, I don't care if people are looking at us, like it's just you and me, and I feel like when she kisses Thomas, it's just like she's in a different moment, which is a good thing. It's like when you fall in love with somebody, right? You don't care who sees, you're just in that moment. And, it's almost like when Thomas kisses Kat, she kind of just falls into the kiss, you know what I mean? So then she comes back and she sees Thomas again on the beach, and she kisses Thomas and then is like, I am not doing this to run away from my problems, right? And Thomas is like, it's been 3 months. And Kat's like, it's been 2 days. And he's like, no, it's been 3 months. And he said the townspeople are restless, they're going to turn on Cyrus. And obviously Kat's like, let's go save Susanna. So they go, and then at the end of the scene, you see one of Cyrus's men watching, right? So I'm like, okay, this isn't good. A, that they're watching, but B, she's in 2025 clothes. So they go to Susanna. Thomas gets them in the tunnel or the catacombs, and they go in to see Susanna. And Susanna basically tells them, like, how'd you get in here? Cyrus is using the tunnels to bring in food and supplies. Like, he knows you're here. And as soon as she says that, one of Cyrus's men comes to the door and says he wants to see both of you. And Susanna gives Kat like clothing to put on, right? So, but Cyrus's men saw her on the beach in different clothes, and then with Susanna in different clothes. But when she sees Cyrus and meets Cyrus downstairs in his office, she's in the clothes Susanna gave her. So I thought that was interesting. Like, I'm glad she changed her clothes, because obviously she needs to be in the apparel, they think she's the witch. She needs to, but I thought that was odd, right? Like, she changed clothes before seeing Cyrus. And nobody really talked about that, but I guess they think she's a witch, so I'm sure they can play anything off of the clothing. But I just thought that was interesting. And when they see it, Cyrus kind of he knows everything that's going on. So he has the My Catherine painting, but he sees the date, the 1814, and I was like, he says, and he almost goes to burn it, but he's like, Susanna, you've known her for 2 years. You painted this 2 years ago. And it's almost like Cyrus is saying, I love you. You're not giving me the love. You're not looking at me like you're looking at her right now, and how upset you are that I'm going to destroy this painting. So I feel like that's kind of Cyrus saying, I'm in love with you and you don't look at me that way, right? It's kind of like when you see people out in a restaurant in love, you're like, yeah, you see the way they're looking at each other. Like Cyrus, I think, was kind of upset and like emotionally hurt when he said that. Like you don't look at me that way. So I mean, we saw last week in a scene with Thomas running in to the attic, saving them when they were all talking, Jacob, Thomas, and Susanna. And Susanna, defended Kat to Jacob, and she's like, she's my Catherine, she's my light in the dark times. So I mean, Susanna feels very connected to Kat. And I think Cyrus doesn't understand that, and he wants that connection with Susanna, and I think she's just not giving that off to him. So Susanna was kind of protecting not just herself, but the Landrys. So Cyrus is basically saying the deal is off. And Kat's like, what deal, right? And that's when Susanna said, well, marrying Cyrus wasn't just protecting me, it was protecting my family, the Landrys. And they're like, Elijah. So the town people are all up in arms, right? They break through the gates, and that's when Cyrus runs out with the painting, and has his little rant about how, Elijah is the reason, tells everybody to head to the Landry farm. Thomas sees it too. And he's like, Elijah made a deal with the witch. This is proof. This painting is in front of, the fireplace in the Landry house. He made a deal with the witch, who made a deal with the devil to get the soil. We have to burn it down. And so, I mean, he's making a big deal. This painting that Susanna drew is proving that she knew Kat 2 years ago. That really broke his heart. He wants to, he wants to have payback, so to speak. But also, he wants to do right by the town. Remember when they got married, even Elijah said, like, Cyrus has changed a little bit. He's helping the town. This is a bad time. He's helping the town out. So we find out Elijah was feeding some of the town with his potatoes and rye. Like he was providing for his family, but also gave to the town people. But they're just up in arms. When you have a mob mentality like that, they're not really going to listen to reason. And Elijah even says, they're townspeople. They're my friends. They'll, we'll be able to speak about this calmly. And Jacob's like, no, this is like mob mentality. They're coming with the torches. They're not going to listen to anybody. So that's a little scary. Thomas and Kat and Susanna get to the house, and then they find out Jacob time traveled and now he's back. So they're like, you have to get out of the house. Cyrus is coming. So I like, Elijah is, I like Elijah. I've always liked Elijah. Even when we saw the wedding scene with Cyrus, you probably heard me at the end of the video. Where's Elijah? Is he okay? We didn't see him in the wedding scene. Like, I'm worried for him, right? His wife died. He lost his young son, and then he has Jacob now that's leaving, right? Because it's not from his time. And his son, William, and little Jacob are like never around. So I always feel bad for Jacob. Or I don't want to say never around, because obviously they're just out getting supplies. But I just feel like he is by himself a lot on the farm, and I'm always wanting to look out for him. So I feel for Susanna, and I love that she's close with Elijah. But it just goes to show you the Augustines and the Landrys were very close, because Susanna even said, my deal about marrying Cyrus wasn't protecting me, it was protecting my family. My family is in the Landrys. And Elliot feels like his family is the Landrys growing up too. So I thought that was a great similarity there, how, Elliot kind of feels like Colton was the dad he never had, right? And he was friends with Kat and Dell. They all kind of welcomed him. And I feel like Elijah has welcomed Susanna in the same way. So I like that this is a bond between these two families for a long time. So they warn him that he's coming, and basically, he comes out there, and Kat tries, but obviously it's a mob, and they're burning down the house, right? So they're trying to get Elijah and Susanna out. Once Cyrus finds out Susanna's in the house, he goes in a burning house. Like he's a part of the mob. He's the reason the mob is at the Landrys. And then he goes in the burning house that he's helping burn down. So again, I am not defending Cyrus. I don't like the man, but he has some great traits when it comes to Susanna. That is his soft spot. I mean, he ran in a burning house to save Susanna, right? And then Jacob comes in because he was saving the almanac, and he fights Cyrus. Cyrus is under the table. I love Kat coming in like to save Jacob. I know you survived this, but I'm not going to be the one who saves you. So I like that. Like, Kat is not worried. She knows Cyrus lives on, but she's not going to save him. She's there for Jacob. And what I thought was interesting was when Kat ran back in the building, you noticed who followed her? Thomas. He took off his jacket, and he was going in the building right after Kat, right? Kat came in to save Jacob, and Thomas was like, Kat, where are you? And then you see Jacob being pulled out. So I'm like, oh, my first thought was like, oh no, Cyrus's men are pulling, Jacob out. Are they gonna hurt him or something? Because you just don't see the person. Then once he's out of the house, you look up, and it's Teen Colton. So this is another incident where he has come back. So he was in 1814 and told him about potatoes and rye, and then he comes back in 1816, sees that they're burning down the house, goes in, pulls out Jacob, not knowing who Jacob was at the time. Kat looks up, Kat knows who he is, and Kat says, like, thank you to, and then all he says is, it was all my fault, and he starts running, and obviously he runs and jumps in the pond. But I mean, it's, and you kind of see this pattern, right? Kat is the reason Colton, her dad, dies, but she went back to save him, right? She saves Colton in 1965, only to kill him later on, not on purpose, but cause the accident. Trying to prevent the accident, she causes the accident. So it's like, it's definitely interesting, and now Teen Colton is saving Jacob. And Kat goes back and saves Jacob. And, it's just, it's kind of like a cycle, that they're helping each other, save each other in different areas. It's just a great show. I love how everything kind of comes together and you see that pattern. So it's definitely interesting how you saw that. So, everybody gets out. When he leaves, that's really all he says, Teen Colton. He just says, this was all my fault, and he leaves. But then you look, and somebody else is coming out of the fire, and you're like, Elijah went back in to save Cyrus. And he pulls Cyrus out. So I hope Cyrus knows that Elijah just saved him, right? Because he basically brought the town people to burn down the Landry's house. They made a devil, they made, a deal with the devil, a deal with the witch. We need to burn it down for, I don't know, get the evil spirits out, whatever their reason was for burning down the house. So I hope Cyrus sees that, you know what I mean? Okay, you were just saved by Elijah, who you encouraged the town people to burn down his house. So again, I love Elijah. He is such a good person. So we've seen Teen Colton now go back to 1814. We actually saw the scene where he actually told him about potatoes and rye. And we saw him go back in 1816 and save Jacob out of the burning house. And now we have that other answer, the fire. So this answers some questions too. The spirit board in 1974, when they said fire, and Colton got freaked out and left because he feels like he's the reason, it's all his fault. What is his fault? He's the reason that told him to plant the potatoes and rye, and now the town people are coming after him because the crop did so well. So he feels like it was his fault. So I think that's what he was so freaked out about in the attic when they did the spirit board. Obviously, we won't know for sure, but that kind of plays in, right? Because it felt like he was feeling guilty. Was that what he was referring to when he was sitting by the pond with Evie? What if you did something terrible? Or is he talking about this secret that he has with Dell? Or Dell's secret might not have anything to do with Colton, or maybe it does. So at least that gives you, maybe that's what he was talking about with Evie. What would you do if you knew you did something terrible? So we don't know. That's speculation, but it fits. There could be something else that Colton does. So that was definitely exciting. 1814, and then seeing 1816, we find out about the fire. We don't know if Teen Colton time travels anywhere else, but we do find out. When he comes out of the pond, that is the scene from a couple episodes ago when Alice sees him at the pond. Remember, this is right after Rick's funeral, and he tells Alice that, he didn't go anywhere. Because he later tells Alice, I tried and it didn't take me anywhere. But why, when he came out of the pond, and you've probably seen in my video before this, I was asking this too, if he didn't time travel anywhere, then why was he asking Alice, how's the farm? How's my mom? If you were only gone for 30 seconds, you wouldn't need to ask somebody how the farm is when Alice goes, I just came from the farm. The reason why he was so flustered is because he just saw his house burn to the ground and he saved a man, right? Which he didn't know at the time was his future son, but he's like, you just came from the farm, how is it? Because he's not sure at that time. He's assuming he's back since he sees Alice, but I think he's just all kind of flustered and upset because he's jumping in the pond to go back and save Rick, and he goes to 1816 and saves Jacob out of the burning house. So they did answer that was a big speculation. I'm glad they answered that question too, but I feel like a lot of people thought that too, only because, like I said, he comes out of the pond telling Alice later he didn't go anywhere, but he's asking Alice these questions. So that's confirmed too. They finish it up. He's in the same outfit, and they finish it up and kind of tell you that was him coming out of the pond with Alice that day. So we really don't know how much more he travels, but going back into 1974, since I kind of brought that up as confirming, the 1816 that he was coming back from there. Evie wants to go for it with Colton. We saw that in their previews, and she tells Alice. Alice tries to talk her out of it, obviously, but and then she still doesn't believe Alice. She's like, I want to go for it. But then you see the scene when Alice and Colton, when he uses the phrase, I know you're like me. So the like me quote that they kind of left you as a preview from last week. Everybody's like, oh, he's going to tell Alice that he can time travel or knows Alice is a time traveler. And I'm like, no, they just want you to think that. That's called editing. They want you to think that. I bet you when he says the term, you're like me, it means you're a musician like me. I feel like they're just throwing you off with that. They're getting us excited, like they're going to have a time travel talk, which I hope they do in the future. But I was right. He was referring to you're like me, you're a musician, right? So, and Colton sings with Alice. And you've heard me say this in other videos, and I can't say it enough. It's almost, it's almost like angels singing. It's just angelic. Alice has this amazing voice. I hope the actress who plays her, if this isn't her real voice and somebody's singing, whoever's voice this is, and I think it is the actress, but I'm not sure. record a record. I mean, you were incredible. Please record a record because your a cappella with Colton, with him on the guitar, I guess not a cappella since he had the guitar technically, but her singing is amazing. And when Colton sings with her, even when Elliot did the duet with Kat and Elliot, I thought sang great together. Colton and Alice sing great together. Alice by herself when she sang when Emma did the violin. I mean, I just love anytime Alice sings. It's just so beautiful. So I could go on and on just how much I love her singing voice. So I enjoyed this episode very much because you saw her sing on a couple occasions and it just so effortless. You see her sing and you just like, yes, that's your natural talent. I hope this actress goes to Broadway so she can sing and act because she's incredible. Okay, I'm going to get off of that, but it was wonderful to see them record the song. And then just listening to their blended voices. And then he sings a song that he confesses he wrote for Dell. And it's such a sweet song. And Alice gets teared up because she's heard it before. This is a song that Colton as an adult has sang to Dell. And and he goes, or I'm sorry, Alice goes, was this the song you were going to sing to her when she left? Because you only had a couple minutes. And then Colton says, yes, I was going to sing her this song and I was going to propose. Well, Evie hears it because Evie's listening through the door, but nobody knows Evie's listening to it. But she's really upset. She hears the song. She thinks it's sweet. And then when, Colton says this was for Dell, it's heart-wrenching, I think, for her to see that. And then the next, scene, you see her kind of lying in the pond and Alice freaks out because she kind of looks like she could be. She's floating, but, you could think that she was drowning or, and so, of course, Alice has that conversation with Evelyn, which I think needed to happen. And Alice is such a sweet-natured person. I really think she kind of let her down, Evie down easy. Like, I don't think he's gonna be with you. Like, you need to kind of understand his heart is with Dell. So it's one of those things where you want friends who are going to be honest with you, right? And Alice is kind of at that point with Evelyn, like, hey, you got to move on. Like, he's not going to be with you. His heart still belongs to Dell. It's not a fling. And so I think, I hope Evelyn understands that, but she kind of gets aggravated and leaves. And then, of course, Alice jumps in the pond. So there wasn't much of 1974. But at least Alice had that conversation with Evelyn. So my next thought was with the 1974 is what's going to happen next, right? Because Alice keeps going back. She's seeing the love story between Dell and Colton, but she's there for Evie, right? Because she even said when they were on the boat on their first date, why am I here? Oh, I'm here for you, because she's seeing Evie suffer. So now that she kind of had that conversation with her, I'm not sure what they're going to do in 1974. If Alice is going to come back and, I mean, I want them to go back to 1974, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying if Evelyn's kind of upset with Alice, if Alice comes back, I mean, she's going to have to go to see Evelyn because that's her friend there, right? But Evelyn is such a free spirit, and she's just so tender-hearted. I really hope that when Alice comes back next episode or whenever she goes back to the 70s, she can make up with Evelyn. But this might be the start of her downfall when she finds out she can't have Colton. I'm looking forward to 1974 because I feel like we've got that out of the way. We got that out of the way. The ring box was to propose to Dell. We got what his big surprise was. He was going to sing an original song just that he made for Dell, propose to her. We know all that. We now know and see that Evelyn has that conversation with Alice, knows Colton is 100% for Dell, and she basically has no chance. So the only thing left for me to see in the 70s is Dell's secret. If it is from the 70s, show me how Dell comes back. Obviously, she comes back and is with Colton. what's going on with her family at home. How does she come back? So that's what I want to see now in the 70s. And of course, if you want to throw in a scene of Alice singing with Colton, yes, please sign me up. I love her voice and everybody who sings with her. It's just so great. I love that they throw that in there. So not much of that of 1974. Going back to 2025, we did have some scenes in there. Um, and the scenes that we saw were kind of conversation, like dialogue. You know, we kind of had some relationship talk here. Like Dell actually sees a flashback of Colton when she's leaving that day. I was just saying goodbye to Fern, you know, or not necessarily saying goodbye. I'm sorry. I guess they were going to the movies or something. And she was just saying how Fern has these amazing stories about the pond. So, I mean, at that point, he would have time traveled, right? Because Rick died at the beginning of the summer. So when Dell was like, she's talking to him about the pond, and Colton was like downplaying it. Um, you know, she doesn't know what she's talking about or whatever, you know, Colton says to her. He had already time traveled. We confirmed this. So when she has this flashback, I don't know if Dell knows he's already time traveled, but it's interesting, you know, his reaction to Dell saying, I was just talking to Fern. She's all talking about the pond. And then you see, you know, a scene with Jacob, Elliot, and Nick. And they talk. You know, you see the keychain that he gave Alice back in 99. So that comes up. And you know, I like Nick. I think he's there as a sounding board for Elliot. I think he's going to be that sounding board for Jacob. He's just that friend that knows about the pond but can't travel but is willing to listen. So I really think, you know, he's a great character to have here because there's a lot of emotion. These women are breaking down. They're seeing these things that and Jacob is having a hard time. So I really like that Nick is there. I hope we see more of him. I don't know how Claire comes into the picture. We didn't see her this episode, but I definitely like that he's there to support them. And then you see Alice, you know, tell Alice and Kat talk about Casey and Colton time traveling. So Kat's like, wow, I missed a lot. They're both time traveling. Dell comes in, says like, I'm tired, I'm over it. Then you find out, you know, um, Noah, you know, Alice breaks up with Noah, which is kind of sad because I thought they were cute together. And I feel like the only reason she broke up with Noah was because she thinks her future it was with Max because of Casey. So I'm starting to get Elliot vibes there. Like, I feel like, remember, Elliot knew his future as well. So I feel like, you know, Elliot had this relationship with Emma and he wasn't 100% in it because he knew his future. And I feel like that's kind of mirroring what's happening with Alice. Alice was in this relationship with Noah, but she can't be in it 100% because she feels like her future's already set, that she's with Max because she has Casey. So I kind of feel bad because I think Emma and Noah are both great characters. But then, you know, Kat has this conversation with Elliot about their relationship, and they basically go on a break, separate, have some time apart. Now, I know I mentioned this in my last episode because I heard somewhere where the writers referred to Kat and Elliot as Ross and Rachel on Friends. And I've said before, you can see behind me, I have Friends stuff. I love Friends. Ross and Rachel are very toxic. And I see some of the things that Elliot says is some of the things that I can go back and go, yep, there's a scene where Ross acts exactly like this, or he says something exactly like what Elliot is saying. So I can see the Elliot character like mirroring episodes and scenes from Ross from the show Friends. So, and even Kat. Like, I like Kat, I like Elliot. I like Ross and Rachel from Friends, but they both had problems in the relationship. Kat's not being honest about her feelings with Thomas, and she should be able to open up and talk to Elliot about it. Elliot, I feel like, is keeping things. So they're both not honest in the relationship, but the kind of vibes that they were saying, like when Kat's like, this is broken, this isn't working. It's kind of what Rachel was saying to Ross. This isn't working. We need to, and then Elliot going, well, did you do that to get back at me? And then I can see Ross going, well, did you do that to get back? So, I mean, I definitely see why the writers say that and how they're doing that. I definitely can see that. However, I don't always like to know the ending with that. I like Thomas's character. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Thomas at the end. But I can definitely see that. You ever heard the expression, I can't unsee it? Like when you see something and you're like, oh, I didn't want to know that. I didn't want to see that. So now that I know that Kat and Elliot are the end game, according to the writers, and that they're the Ross and Rachel, because if you talk to the Friends writers, they will tell you from the beginning, from season 1, and Friends had 10 seasons from the beginning, they were going to have Ross and Rachel end up together. They were going to have fluff. They were going to break up. They were going to date other people to fill in the episodes, but that was their end game. So I feel like that's what the writers of The Way Home are saying. Kat and Elliot are the end game. There's going to be fillers. They're going to see other people. But, I mean, like I said, I love all the characters on Friends, but I'm like, okay, towards the end, I wasn't all about them. And everybody just assumed they would be together. So I like Kat, I like Elliot, I like them together. However, this season they're very toxic, and I very, very, very much can see the shadowing between, in the mirroring of Ross and Rachel and Kat and Elliot. That being said, it just really just gave me those vibes. So I think they're going to split up for a while and see other people. I think she's going to try to pursue this thing with Thomas. I mentioned when she was running towards him at the beach, she's like, I'm not running away from my problems, So I don't know if she's going to try to make things work with Thomas or try to see what happened there, because it really kind of left us at the burning house. So next episode, I don't know if they're going to go back to that exact scene at 1816. I do have some questions here. I'm going to go over what we learned, what we got answered this episode, and what questions we still have. I'm going to talk about Thomas and Casey and everybody. But basically, Alice broke up with Noah. Kat broke up with Elliot. And then Kat even had a conversation with Dell about Jacob. And I'm glad Dell said this, because everybody's thinking it. Like, did Cole know where Jacob was? If Colton knew what happened to our son Jacob and he knew about the pond, why did he watch me mourn? Like, how did he let me go through that pain if he knew? And I think that if I were Dell, I would be thinking that too. And we know a teen Colton time traveled. So it still brings up questions. First off, let me just say this, because I don't think people are realizing this. He didn't disappear from the pond, right? He disappeared at the carnival. He was chasing Danny and a stuffed animal, and Danny threw the stuffed animal over a cliff. So when everybody goes, well, duh, why didn't Colton try to get him? Obviously it was the pond. No, not obvious, right? I mean, his son disappeared at a carnival, and the witness, another little boy, Danny, said that he was going to jump off this cliff to get his teddy bear. So no, everybody thought he drowned. Nobody thought he died at the house. Nobody knew he went back to the house. So it's not like what's so obvious that adult Colton, should have not spent all that money on the PI, and he should have just knew he time traveled. But I mean, he didn't supposedly disappear anywhere near the house. He disappeared at the carnival and possibly fell off a cliff because Danny had that guilt for throwing his teddy bear or whatever stuffed animal he had. So, don't be so hard on adult Colton, because that wasn't his first thought that the pond took him, right? So, and remember, if you saw my theory video, Colton very clearly, as an adult Colton, warned Jacob many times to stay away from the pond. in a very serious, matter. So if you haven't, you can go back and see my theories video because I really emphasize the Colton about him time traveling and all the conversations he had with Jacob. So no, I don't think that adult Colton's first thought when his son disappeared from the carnival that he, time traveled through the pond. Maybe over time he might thought that. Maybe he tried to time travel and save him, kind of like what Kat was doing. But, don't get down on adult Colton because, again, he supposedly was disappeared at the carnival. So I would have hired a PI too if it were me. So, but I know I'm getting off track here. But yeah, I mean, I think adult, Dell has the right to be a little upset because she doesn't understand everything. And now she knows her husband time traveled. And she doesn't know much about it. She doesn't know, like, if the pond tells you no and where the pond might take you. So it is hard. She's still mourning Colton. You still have those scenes where she's talking to Colton. And she does have a scene later where she's talking to Colton at the table. Like, how come you didn't confide in me? How come you didn't have faith in me? And then, she says, I have faith in my girls to get our family through this. So I like that. And, there's a scene where Nick hugs Dell and says, you Landry women are strong. I'm not going to tell Claire about the pond. I think, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes because I think he says something. Yeah, they hug afterwards. Like, Nick, again, like I said earlier, he's there for Jacob. He's there for Elliot. He's there for Dell. Dell just watched Jacob jump. And that's the scene where she's talking to the pond. You've taken everything from me. And you see the splash. So you're like, did somebody just come out or come back? And what happened? Like, who just jumped? So we got that answered. It was Jacob. Going back to 1816 about the fire and everything in the house. But that's when Nick confronted Dell. So we've seen Nick basically be there for Dell, hugged. And I think Dell generally, it was genuine. What he said was really sweet and said, Claire's not going to understand about the pond. She's going to think I'm nuts. And, and I like that. I think that kind of gave her, this might be why Colton didn't tell you. I mean, Nick didn't say that, but I feel like that's kind of what Dell felt like. Okay, this is probably what you're saying about Claire is probably why he didn't tell me either, and reassured her. So Nick did a great job of being a good friend to so many characters in this one episode alone. There's also a time where Elliot and Jacob talk about Kat. Now, this part I really enjoyed because I know everybody likes to bash Elliot that he's so disrespectful to Kat, but he also stands up for her and defends her. And when Jacob was like, she killed her dad. Like, I can't get past that. And Elliot was like, look, this was very difficult for her. She has been struggling with this. She blames herself. Don't jump on it and blame her too. She's going through a lot. So I really liked that soft side to see Elliot. You know what I mean? Like, I know everybody likes to bash Elliot. I like Elliot, but I like every character. I don't dislike anybody. I don't bash any of the characters. I don't bash any of the relationships. Remember, this is a judge-free zone on my channel and all my videos. I will talk how much I love Thomas, how much I love him as the character, how much I love him with Kat. But you'll also see how I like Elliot with Kat as well. So you can like, the same person in two different relationships because you really don't know where it's going to go. And Kat and Elliot from season 1 and 2 and Kat and Elliot in season 3 are completely different. So, I mean, that's definitely interesting too. So I definitely want to bring that conversation up. I don't think it's going to help. I think Elliot haters are still going to hate Elliot, but it was a very nice scene to see him defend Kat and kind of say, hey, don't be so hard on her. She still blames herself for it as well. So, there was a lot of kind of heart to hearts. And even when Dell talks to Elliot and Elliot says, yeah, I've been keeping secrets. I've known about the pond for decades. And I think that kind of like, she's keeping a secret too, right? But again, those nice little kind of dialogues. A lot of what happened in 2025 was really heart to heart, one on one conversations, right? We had all the action in basically in 1814 and 1816, and then that nice record in the 1974. But 2025 is really just about conversations and learning. And then you have that Nick and Alice moment where he gives her back the bracelet, and then at the end you also see Max Goodwin. So the scene with Max Goodwin is him at the house, and he plays chess with Alice, basically saying Evelyn taught him how to play chess. And I feel like they're going to talk about Evelyn, at least I hope, because I feel like Alice is kind of warming up to Max, and we're finding out maybe Max isn't a bad guy after all, or maybe he's a typical teen. I mean, if you go back and remember all the conversations and everything you did when you were a teenager, you'd probably be like, yeah, there were times where I was, said something stupid, or and so I think his way of apologizing from the scene up in the attic at his house was, telling Elliot she did her part and turned in the project. And I think now he's like trying to help her. They have this quiz on Monday, and try to help her study, and then the whole chess thing. So I really think Max is trying to warm up to Alice, which was kind of nice. We kind of saw him be a little bit nicer to her, which I liked. And then at the end, when she wanted to apologize to Noah, you saw that Max was on the truck, and that Noah left town. So it's definitely interesting, I think, because he takes her hand and they go on up. So I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, I did miss one scene that I'm definitely going to talk about at the end. Kat looks a little bit deeper at the photos of Casey on her phone, and you can kind of see a resemblance. And yes, I know these actors are playing roles and they're not really related in real life, but it's a show and they want you to see a resemblance in two people. So I say that as like a disclaimer, because I know people are like, don't look too much into it. They're just actors. But I do see a little bit of resemblance when she showed the picture and the cheekbones. But then you see the signature on the paper. Now, and you see she signed it KC. So I know there was a bunch of theories going around. Her name's not Casey, her name's Casey. It's Catherine. And Catherine, Coyle, or, it's their baby or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't seen her name in print. It's a great theory, but we want to see some evidence. So it seems like this is evidence to kind of, give some life to that theory. Maybe Casey is not Alice and Max's kid. I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end. I'm going to talk a little bit about her signature in a second. So the preview for next week shows Cyrus again. And you see Jacob with the torch. I don't know if he's like burning down, the Lingermore, or where Lewis Goodwin is, because he's an adult. So I'm assuming this is current time. Or maybe not. You know what I mean? You see Dell see something on the computer, like, I don't know, how to make a torch out of fire, or where to start to burn down something, because Jacob is trying to do that. But maybe he's doing it back in 1816, or maybe he's doing it in current day. All we know is that we saw him with the torch, like he was going to do something bad, and Dell saw the computer on her, on the bed. But like I said, we don't know if that means he's, going to do it in current day, 2025, and Lewis Goodwin, or if he traveled back and is going to do it back then. And we see a new letter. So I like to talk about the unsigned letters of Dell. We've only seen 2 this season. And this one, they showed a close-up on it. It says, keep an eye on your son. So I guess in the next episode, we're going to see her get the letter. Because remember, this is a preview. So this is those quick scenes in the preview for next week. And I want to talk a little bit about The typewriter. So I don't know if I mentioned this in my past videos. I might have, but I do want to go over some of the questions we had answers, some new questions that came up, and then things we didn't see. So I will talk about the typewriter as well. But the questions we got answered in this episode. Susanna did sketch. Yes, Teen Colton with Jacob. I know there was a lot of speculation on who's in the picture. We definitely thought it was Jacob. Most of people thought it was Jacob, but wasn't sure who the other person was. So we do know that it was Teen Colton with Jacob in the sketch that Susanna did. We do know confirmed Teen Colton tells Jacob about potatoes and rye, not Elijah. We definitely got confirmed because we saw the scene. So these are confirmed things. We saw Susanna sketch them. We saw him physically tell him about potatoes and rye. We saw Colton come out of the pond, but they completed the scene from 1974 after Rick's death. But it wasn't 1814, it was 1816 because it was right after the fire. So there was speculation after Rick's funeral. He did time travel probably to 1814. We thought it had something to do with the sketch, but no, he traveled to 1816 when he saved him out of the fire. So we got confirmation of what time he traveled when he came out of the pond after Rick's funeral and saw Alice. That was right after the fire in 1816. That's why he was like, "You came from the farm. Is it okay? Is my mom okay?" Because he just saw it burn down. So that was confirmed. Another thing that was confirmed was the song. When Teen Colton was telling Alice I had something big special planned for Dell, and you saw the ring box, we all assumed, well, that's confirmed because Teen Colton said it. I wrote a song. I was going to sing it to Dell. I was going to propose to her. So we kind of got that, answered on what the big special was. Was he really going to propose, or was that just a red herring? No, he was. The "You're like me" quote that Colton tells Alice. Everybody was wondering, what does that mean? I knew it. I knew it was about a musician. I hope I said it in my last video so people believe me. But I didn't think it was about time traveling because that's what they like to hook you with, right? Like, oh, it has to be about time travel. Well, no. He was referring to "You're like me, you're a musician." So that was confirmed, that quote, since that was answered. The other thing answered, the reason Susanna married Cyrus. So we thought it was for her protection, right? And it was, but she made a deal, not just protection and safety for herself, but for the Landrys, for Elijah. So, again, Susanna is one of my favorite characters. This is one of the reasons why I love her too. Same with Thomas, like always looking out for Elijah. And Thomas is always looking out for Susanna and Elijah. But Susanna is looking out for Elijah as well, and the Landrys and Jacob and William, Elijah's sons, because that's part of the reason why she married Cyrus. So that's kind of confirmed because people were wondering, what was the deal? What was her agreement with Cyrus? And we found that out. And then, we confirmed Casey time traveled. Alice didn't see her come back up when she jumped. So, we knew that because we saw her jump, but I know there's speculation well, maybe she popped right back up, right? Is this just want them to think that she's a time traveler and she popped back up on the other side of the pond? So we kind of confirmed that because Alice said she did not come back up, she's a time traveler. So we kind of figured that, but that's confirmed. And we kind of, the speculation of the whole Casey and KC thing. We saw the signature with Casey. So what is her real identity? And we confirmed one more thing. We did confirm that Max knows how to play chess. So when they were in the attic, right, in the last episode, and Alice finds the chess piece, Max kind of looked confused. Well, we got a confirmation this episode that he doesn't just know how to play chess. Evelyn taught him how to play chess, where I can checkmate you in 5 moves is what, I know Evelyn didn't tell him to say that, but like Max just doesn't know chess. He's good at it, right? And so he would have known right away that that was a bishop piece. So he seemed confused in the attic when he saw it, and maybe that's why. Like, oh, Evelyn taught me chess. Why is this in there? So we did confirm that maybe the chess piece that was found might have to do with Max and not Sam. So I know everybody says, oh, it was a bishop, Sam Bishop. It has to do with Sam. But we just got confirmation that Max had that connection with Evelyn, and Evelyn's the one who taught him how to play chess. So maybe the bishop piece has some, significance to Max. Not saying it is, I'm just throwing it out there because remember, there's so many twists and turns. And again, I welcome all theories, judgment free zone. But that's just something to throw out there now that we've got it confirmed that Max knows chess. Maybe the chess piece has something to do with him. I mean, it wasn't in Lingermore. I mean, that's where Evelyn was. Maybe Evelyn was sending a message to Max. So we don't know. It could very well have to do with Sam Bishop. I'm not discrediting that at all. Definitely could be. I'm just saying that's another possibility, kind of another interesting angle where they were telling us how good Max is at chess. So that's what was answered. Now, I'm not upset that those were answered. I mean, I think a lot of these questions that were answered aren't the questions I wanted answered. I kind of assumed with the sketch that it was young Colton. I'm glad they confirmed that watching her actually sketch it in person. And I kind of thought it could have been Fern or Colton tell him about the potatoes and rye. But I like that they like confirmed what a lot of people were, wondering about, or, I'm 80% sure because it just doesn't make sense otherwise. I'm glad they confirmed some things for sure. But to me, it wasn't the exciting things that were confirmed. But I'm not going to nitpick. I want my answers. You gave me answers to questions, so I'm okay with that. However, I have new questions from this episode. So is Susanna is Susanna from the story of the wife locked up in the attic, Cassandra? Because remember, she's in the attic looking down at the townspeople and says, Cyrus has me, she didn't use the word locked. She just said, Cyrus has me staying in the house for my own protection. So I'm thinking it really could be Susanna, especially after tonight's scene where, Susanna rushes back. He goes into the house to save Susanna after Kat says, look, I've seen the future. So I mean, I can definitely still see Cyrus putting Susanna in the attic. Now, whether she was locked up there against her will, it looks like here, at least she was living up there because Cyrus was trying to protect her for the time being. If that has anything to do with the story about the wife being locked and being Cassandra, maybe it has nothing to do with anything. But I did think that was interesting that Susanna said, Cyrus has me staying in the house up here for my protection. So that's interesting, so that's my question. And then another question we have, will we see Claire, Nick's Claire? Nick said he won't tell her about the pond, but could she be connected or related? A lot of people think Claire could be, an adult Alice, or, does she have any resemblance? Are there going to be any scenes with her that we're going to be like, oh, what did she mean by that? So, I mean, we really haven't seen Claire. We really don't know how she comes into the picture, but are we going to see her? Because this episode, we saw a lot of Nick. And like I said, I love Nick. He did great comforting so many different characters this episode. So I'm curious, is Claire going to be in some scenes? So that's going to be interesting. I want to know that. Where did Noah go? He left for a few days. Is that the end of Noah? And now you're going to see kind of Max and Alice, start a relationship, or are we going to see something, find out there? Will he come back, or will Alice fall for Max while he's gone? Which it kind of leaned that way, right? At the end, he took her hand and she took his hand and went into the food truck. And what else are we going to see in 1974? Dell's secret. Please tell me Dell's secret. I think that's like one number one on my list. 1 and 2. I got one and maybe 2 or 3 questions that are like burning that I want to answer. Thank you again for answering questions this episode. I'm not going to downplay that. I will take any answers to any questions, but I desperately want to know what Dell's secret is. And will we see it? because will Dell's secret be in 1975, 1974? We know she leaves at the end of the summer. That comes right into what, August, September? You only got a couple more months to the end of the year. Is she going to come back the next year in 75? Because is the secret with her family, or like I said before in my other episodes, is the secret something her and Colton did together that they're covering up, or is it Dell's personal family secret that she's holding, tells Colton, confides in him, and he agrees to keep the secret? Which would be interesting if Dell has this deep secret about her family, or disgracing or shaming her family. Maybe she was supposed to marry somebody from this cotillion dance, or something. And she runs back to Colton. If she has a family secret and she tells Colton about it, then I think she feels betrayed as a 2025 Dell. That, like, look, I had this deep, dark secret that I told you, that you caved to your grave. Like, you never told anybody, but you had a deep, dark secret about time traveling that you never told me. So I think adult Dell, 2025 Dell, knowing that he time traveled, this episode Dell, is a little conflicted, because she's like, I confided in you. I told you secrets. We had secrets together, maybe. We don't know if it's just Dell's secret or Dell and Colton together. However, I think she's feeling betrayed because Colton had that secret and supposedly never told Dell about it. So I think Dell is kind of feeling a little betrayed, which is difficult when your husband is dead, right? You're feeling betrayed and ashamed all over again. Which are hard emotions. And who and how, well, I guess we know how they build it, but who helps Elijah rebuild his house in 1816? What happens after the fire? Because Kat even said, we'll help you rebuild. So does Thomas help? I mean, Thomas is such a nice person to the Landrys. I'm sure he does. But, we never heard that story. I want to hear what happens after the fire. Do we keep going back to 1816? You know what I mean? Because Kat says it's going to get better. So I want to know who rebuilds the house. How does that happen? What's next with Thomas? Thomas says he's not going to wait for Kat, but he's there for Susanna. I mean, where are they going with the 18? We went back to 1814, got Jacob. We went to 1816. We've got the fire. We got the White Witch. We got the potatoes and rye. Like, what's left for us there? I mean, like I said, I like the Thomas character, but I feel like there's not much for us to do except go back to 1860 and help them rebuild, right? Find out what's going on with Cyrus. What does Cyrus do with Susanna now, right? Now, I mentioned in my video earlier, when he had that conversation about putting the My Catherine portrait in the fire, I feel like he was hurt as a husband. You're my wife. You've known the witch for 2 years. You painted this. You feel pained. I see this love that you have for Kat, that you're not reciprocating with me, and I'm your husband. So I feel like Cyrus felt human in that moment. And again, I'm not making excuses for Cyrus, but I feel like he was hurt. Like, Suzanne, I've protected you. You're my wife. I love you. You don't show me that kind of love. You don't see me. Your eyes don't look like that when you look at me. So I feel like it was just kind of one of those hurt things where I love you more than you love me kind of thing. And I'm wondering what's going to happen afterwards, right? Elijah saves Cyrus from the fire. What happens now? Obviously, Jacob and Kat go back to 2025, and Jacob is left with the burnt house, and townspeople still pissed. How does all that subside? Like I said, who rebuilds the house? What happens with Cyrus and Susanna after the fire? Is she the one locked up in the attic? Is Cyrus, because remember, he's angry with Catherine, but the townspeople just broke through the gate. So you really didn't get the end of that conversation, except we're going to go to the Landrys. So, I mean, after the dust settles, and the ashes, so to speak, settle, how does the Cyrus and Susanna relationship, where do they go from there? Because I feel like that was a big point in their relationship, with Cyrus finding the My Catherine photo or portrait. So I think it could go that way. This could turn Cyrus to be evil against Susanna and lock her up there. Maybe he locks her up here now, right? Because we don't really know when she gets locked up in the attic. The story, so to speak, of the Cassandra locked up in the attic. So that's going to be interesting too. Are we going to see Fern again? I love Fern. I hope we see her again. I want to find more things out. And since Elijah saved Cyrus from the fire in 1816, is this going to help him in the future? Is Cyrus going to know, hey, you saved my life, I owe you? Is that going to help Elijah? Is Elijah going to be able to protect him? And then I'm going to go over, because I'm going to have to go over Casey's signature because I have something interesting about that. But things we didn't see. We didn't see anything about the clock. So we saw the clock a little bit, but they didn't talk about the clock. Kat had a heart-to-heart with Dell. Colton really loved you, but Kat did not tell Dell she was the other woman at Colton's funeral. And I was a little disappointed in that because they had a heart-to-heart. You saw Dell and Kat have a mother-daughter heart-to-heart. You know, how could Colton not tell me this? And Kat was like, you know, Colton, he loved you. He loved our family, right? Why not at that moment say, he loved you. I don't want you to think he cheated on you. I'm the other woman at the funeral. Like, hello, Kat, that was perfect timing for you to say that, and you didn't. So I was a little disappointed. I liked them talking. And obviously, if everybody has these conversations, there wouldn't be a show, right? Because that's what it, distraction, miscommunication, drama. But I was a little disappointed that Kat didn't take that moment when she's telling her mom how much Colton loved her. He didn't say, by the way, I know that Dad didn't cheat on you because I came back. I saw him with the PI. I was the other woman at the funeral. Like that was the time for Kat to tell Dell, in my opinion. So I'm kind of upset we didn't see that. We didn't see Casey or Sam. We didn't see any clues, for that matter, that really told us anything about the baby in the basket or the jumpers or who the jumpers are. We didn't really find out anything about Dell's secret or any other clues about Dell's secret. However, one thing, and no talk about the clock. One thing I did want to mention was when Dell told Alice maybe Colton felt trapped, quote unquote, on why Colton didn't keep, why he kept that from her. Maybe it was something that he wanted to keep of his own, something, just him. So I don't know what that means. Seems kind of cryptic to me when Dell said that to Alice, when Alice was like, I don't know why he didn't tell me. And of course, Alice is comforting. I feel like Alice and Nick both are kind of having those traits in this episode. They're kind of comforting their friend, even though Alice kind of got yelled at Evie, which is completely out of character for Alice. I don't really see her yell at many people, but I picked up on that because, and I don't think Alice really knew why Dell said that. But Dell was like, well, maybe he didn't tell me because he felt trapped. And I think Alice said, like, what do you mean? She's like, oh, maybe he just wanted to have something all on his own, like, secret from me. But what does that mean, felt trapped? I think that has something to do with Dell's secret. It's just me, but if you rewatch the episode, rewatch that scene with Alice and Dell, and they talk about Colton and time traveling, and that's when she says, well, maybe Colton felt trapped. And Alice is like, what do you mean felt trapped? Well, maybe he just wanted to have something of his own. So I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was very, very interesting. So I want to talk quickly about Casey's signature. So I don't really have a theory about the Casey. Like I said, I know a lot of people think it could be, Coyle or Kat and Thomas's child. However, if you look at the picture of her signature, first off, Goodwin is spelled out great, but you see K, you see a period, and you see C period. Now, I know some people, I saw somebody say it kind of looks like a gun or a symbol. When I saw it, if you close up on the signature, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, judgment-free zone, all theories welcome, I thought I could see an AS, like the, K period and then C. And then if you look closely, ASEY. So I feel like it's like K, Casey, Goodwin. So it could be Catherine Casey Goodwin, but I don't think it was just a C with a line. It looked scribbled, and when I looked at it, I swear I could have saw an A and an S. So she was writing like K period C A S E Y, really tiny, and then Goodwin. So I haven't heard that. That is just me saying me. That's my theory. I'm sure people are going to go back and rewatch it. So please be kind in the comments if you rewatch it and you're like, oh, Jen, you're nuts. That's definitely not it. That's what I saw. And I think that would be awesome if her middle name is Casey. It very well could be Catherine Casey. I mean, family names, because remember, she's from the future. The past is where she's going. So again, we don't know if anybody can travel to the future. Casey is from the future traveling to the past. So the pawn takes you backwards. It hasn't taken anybody forward. No, it didn't take Jacob forward. Jacob was from from this era, and then 1999. So he didn't really travel to the present. That's his current era that he should have been in the whole time. So no, I don't think anybody's traveled to the future. Casey was traveling to her current time period, just like Alice and Kat come back to their current time period. So, we didn't see Casey, we didn't see Sam, so no issues on that front. I really want to know Del's secret. If you could only give me two answers, Hallmark, and I know all the episodes are already taped. However, my two answers that I want are Del's secret, who's the baby in the basket, who the jumpers are, and Casey. Well, actually, I take that back. I really want to know who's sending the notes. Now that we know the new note is keep an eye on your son, and we see this scene of Jacob trying to burn somebody down, that note has to know something about time travel or the future. So I'm still going back to my original thought. I think either Sam is sending the letters, Lewis is sending the letters, because I think Lewis Goodwin knows something. Maybe Max is sending the letters. I mean, I just feel like there's so many people that I could think that could be sending these letters. I want to know that too. And I'm glad I mentioned it earlier because I almost forgot the typewriter. If you look at the notes, have you noticed that there's a couple letters that are off center? So I know not everybody's experienced with a typewriter, but I'm aging myself. But I learned how to write on a typewriter, how to type on a physical typewriter, not a computer. So I know my home keys. I know how to, type without even looking up or looking down at the keys. But if you look at typewriters, the way they're set up, especially old ones, sometimes they're not aligned correctly. So if you look, this is only the third note that she's gotten, but even the envelopes, because remember, we see the envelopes that the letters come into, the letters are off. So I'm thinking if we can find the typewriter that has those letters slightly not centered, right? We'll know where the typewriter was from. Now, could it be from the newspaper office? I don't know. We don't, if it was the newspaper office, it wasn't necessarily Casey sending the letters, because remember, she told Rita that the letters started after Jacob came back home. So Casey's gone, right? Unless she's time traveling just to mail letters. I thought was interesting though, I didn't see a forwarding address. I saw a stamp, but I didn't really see any kind of postage on there. So are these letters being hand delivered? And if they are, wouldn't have Del saw somebody coming on our property, putting a letter in our mailbox? So that's interesting to me too. But I want to mention the typewriter because the numbers and the letters on the notes are off. And I think that's going to come into play. We're going to see some scene, somebody typing on a typewriter, and we're going to notice, oh, that's the typewriter that the notes were printed on. And that's kind of going to show us who was sending the notes and why. So a lot of questions, we got some answers. I went over my questions, what wasn't in this episode, what I want to see answered. And, like I said, hopefully we'll see that typewriter, because like I said, once we kind of figure out where these notes are coming from, I think we're going to figure out why. But yes, I still want to know who Sam is. I'm suspicious of everybody, honestly. I'm suspicious of Max and Lewis, suspicious of Casey. And again, leave me comments if you want to, spin theories. Again, all comments are welcome. All theories are welcome. I like all the characters, but there's so much to talk about. I'm really looking forward to the next episode. I hope we can get some more answers, because some of those, really big questions weren't even addressed here. So I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to leave me comments or spin theories with me, I would love to hear from you. So until the next episode, I will see you then. Bye.